Bulletcast for life.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Under the Radar. My name is Brandon Tanguma, and yes, Under the Radar is back. Little special sporadic appearances we'll be doing every now and then when, maybe something pops up midweek after the Bulletcast or something I know we're probably not going to talk about. But originally, this was just supposed to be I come on, I review Wrestle Kingdom 17. But at the very end of the Bulletcast, we had some very big late breaking news as Vince McMahon announced that he is coming out of retirement and stepping back into the WWE board of directors. And you can hear at least my initial reaction when Brian broke us the news and read the Fightful article. To be honest, when he first said it, I didn't really know what he was talking about. I just kind of assumed he was like just back and going to run everything and he was going to take over control and blah, 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 blah. So initially that's what I thought, but now few days have passed and kind of the dust has settled and we kind of know exactly what's going on. So Thursday he announces that he's coming back. Then Friday George Wilson and Michelle Barrios, who were the kind of like his two right-hand people pre Nick Khan. So, and then he fired them and then now they're back, which is, a weird kind of dynamic in and of itself, but they come back. So that is three new board of directors on the board. Give three people the boot, and then two other people step down once Vince came back. And those were the two people that I believe did the investigation into his sexual misconduct allegations. So a lot of moving pieces. And when Vince first announced, and this is kind of where because Brian was like reading a whole bunch of stuff and I wasn't able to kind of keep up exactly what he was saying, but from what it seems right now is Vince is coming back strictly to be on the board. No creative, no, on-screen type of powers. At least that's what he says. His main purpose for coming back is to negotiate new television rights deals, which are coming up at the end of the year, and the possibility of a WWE sale. And when he retired, he was still the majority shareholder of the company. So no matter what happened, Vince still had voting power and he could do whatever he wanted. It still had to run through him. And he kind of willed that power and was like, look, if there is a sale or whatever, I'm not going to vote on it unless I am a part of the negotiations. And that's exactly what he's saying right now. And he comes. So at first glance, I thought this was going to be a big old power play. It still definitely is a big power play. But at first, right now, as we stand, it's only a business decision. It's only Vince trying to do the negotiations. And I mean, I understand where he's coming from. He's the one that started at least, this form of the company in WWF and the WWE from his father. And if there is going to be a sale, I think that is kind of obviously like the last thing that he wants to do is kind of close that chapter and kind of be a part of it. But also, if he is a part of the negotiations, does the people who he's talking to, whether that be an NBC, Universal, Amazon, Disney, I don't know, Google, YouTube, whatever big conglomerate entity WWE were to go to, is that contingent on Vince also holding power? So is that also why he wanted to come back into power right now be on the board of directors, is for him to, institute a sale to where the company he's negotiating with, that deal is also predicated on him holding power and possibly gaining a little bit more power as they transition into whatever new company WWE would be under. So that is also kind of a little nuanced thing of exactly what is going on in Vince's head. And also with the sexual assault allegations still looming. I mean, even when he retired, I always thought that Vince kind of brushed these allegations to the side and didn't think of him as that big of a deal. I mean, even, a couple months, 3 months into the suspension or retirement, that he thought that, he can come back. And I mean, it's Vince. He thinks he can do whatever he wants. And so when he announced that he's coming back, it did not surprise me. But also, that also brings the allegations back to the forefront. And will there be more allegations? Will there be more spotlight, more whatever you want to say to kind of tarnish Vince McMahon's reputation? And then does that also tarnish the possible sale of the company? Like if Vince wants to hold power and these companies look at him as like, okay, he's kind of damaged goods, does that bring the value down? Unless Vince was just in the background, kind of a, still majority shareholder, but he's going to do whatever, Vince or whatever Stephanie, Hunter, and Nick Khan want to do. And he just is going to vote on that. And Vince isn't a part of the negotiations. He isn't going to be a part of the company going forward. Does that drive up the value of the company just because of it's less of a headache and whatever? But then these companies traditionally are not going to be wrestling people. And so if they see WWE, they think of Vince McMahon. And so if Vince were to be a part of it, I think they would probably have more trust in him, even though, us in the kind of the wrestling sphere understand that maybe Vince's time has passed and he should pass on the power to somebody else younger and kind of more in the know and more aware of what works in wrestling, not just as a stubborn old man who wants to do whatever the hell he wants to do. So that's just my thoughts on it. For sure, we're going to talk about it in a couple days on the Bulletcast, but that was just my thoughts. So then, the other people could share theirs, and I could just kind of step aside and point to this lovely podcast here under the radar. So, as I said, originally this was supposed to be a Wrestle Kingdom review. So let's jump on into the Wrestle Kingdom review. Wrestle Kingdom 17 on January 4th, 2023. This is the first one. Well, technically, this is a 2-night Wrestle Kingdom, as we're going to get night 2 on January 21st. That's the New Japan Noah combined show. But for the sake of just simplicity, this is a 1-night Wrestle Kingdom for the first time in a few years. And I very much enjoyed the show. I thought it was a good show. Wasn't like the best New Japan show of all time, but the hype did get to me. I was waiting. I was going to wait a while to watch it, but then I just kind of broke down, ordered New Japan World, watched it the next day on Wednesday. And I kind of felt like this was a big show for New Japan because kind of right into the pandemic and during the pandemic, New Japan, I thought, took a very big hit. A lot of, the elite left, even going back further with like AJ Styles and all those people. The New Japan product as a whole, like not even just like, the Gaijin wrestlers weren't exactly clicking. It wasn't on the level that they were back in 2017, 2018. But coming into the show, I thought they were kind of hitting their stride. Back in the Tokyo Dome, fans were able to vocally cheer again, which was a big deal because if you didn't know, over in Japan, the pandemic restrictions are stricter than what they're over here. And with the crowds, even though there were crowds, they could only clap. You couldn't audibly, yell, do chants, and anything like that. So adding voice to the crowd definitely helped the show. Now, 26,000 people were in attendance in the Tokyo Dome. It could hold like up to 50,000. So not obviously not a complete sellout. New Wrestle Kingdoms don't typically get that big in terms of 50,000. They're normally around like 30 to 40,000 on like the really good shows. So 25 still, in the back end of a pandemic with Japan very much having stricter restrictions compared to other countries. Still a really good show, or good attendance and a good atmosphere for a Tokyo Dome show. So let's just kick off with the, instead of starting from the beginning, let's start at the end because this was billed as a double main event. And 3 out of the 4 were Gaijin wrestlers. The first of the double main event was Will Ospreay defending his IWGP United States Championship against Kenny Omega. And this was very much a hyped match. Kenny Omega coming back to New Japan for the first time since joining AEW, I believe. So it's been a few years, and Kenny comes out, and I thought he kind of just picked up right where he left off. Obviously, a little older, dealing with injuries this past few years. He wasn't the same Kenny Omega of the prime feud with Okada all those years ago, but still, you could see when Kenny is motivated, he wants to put on a show, he wants to have a really good match, he still can do it, which is really nice to see, because so far in AEW, since coming back, he's been in the trios matches, and even kind of at the back end of his title reign, which he was injured, and so he's, after he came back doing the trio stuff, this is supposed to be a healthy Kenny Omega, and he definitely looked healthy, he looked good. And Will Ospreay, I mean, he continues to be one of the best, if not the best, in-ring wrestler in the world right now. And this match was absolutely phenomenal. At the end, it goes 34 minutes, 38 seconds, longest match on the card. And Kenny successfully wins the title. So it looks as though Kenny will be staying with New Japan and doing some more matches in the future. I mean, I don't know what you can say about this match. I mean, it was great, hard hitting. Will gets busted open. Kenny, I think he had some blood as well, but some outside interference stuff with the United Empire, and Don Callis was on commentary, so it's fun to see Don Callis and Kevin Kelly get back together in the booth and talk. But I mean, if you haven't seen this match, definitely go out of your way to see it. I think it was the best match of the night, and that it was a good show overall, but this match really did kind of stand out above the rest, and it was just really hard hitting. Ospreay, I thought they told a really good story, because Ospreay is kind of the new Kenny Omega, the new top Gaijin wrestler, or at least the super wrestler over there in Japan. And Kenny just kind of nonchalantly flowers, and they go back and forth. And at the end, Ospreay is just kind of just sitting there. They kind of like have a moment, no real embrace, no real passing the torch, which is kind of the big theme of the match of Ospreay. If Kenny's not going to give it to him, he's just going to take it. And Kenny did not pass him the torch. Kenny winning the title means he's going to be sticking around. And later on, we did have Kenny have a tag team match with Okada, which was fun to see. Gave a little bit of a glance, spoiler alert, at Okada's IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. So maybe we're going to get Okada and Kenny to run it back. But I thought this match was absolutely fantastic. And Will Ospreay continues to be great. I mean, Ospreay has been a heel so far in New Japan these past few months, or year or two, kind of beginning in 2020, I think. I can't remember exactly, but he kind of didn't full-fledged turn babyface, but you can kind of see the start of that. And I always think that Ospreay works much better as a babyface. Like, yeah, he has his like antics online, and sometimes he doesn't carry himself the best, but I think his best in-ring work is as a babyface. I think his selling's phenomenal, his comeback, his fire up is phenomenal, and hopefully this is kind of the turn for him to be that like top babyface wrestler in New Japan. He was on the come up as a babyface, and then he kind of, right when he gets like that top level, he wins the title, he was a heel. So now maybe we can see the flip it around, and now he can be a face and a top wrestler in New Japan. Then in the main event, Kazuchika Okada challenges Jay White for the IWGP World Heavyweight title. This one goes 33:03, so slightly shorter than the penultimate match, but still a long match. And I mean, you've seen this match before. They still delivered, still a great match. Okada wins the title again, which you could say is just rehashing things we've seen a bunch of times, but it still works. Okada is still super over, still a great wrestler, still a great character, great lead guy for New Japan. And Jay White, I mean, if you haven't heard me say it before, when he came into New Japan first as a Switchblade, he's coming off of Excursion. He didn't kind of fit the persona. He kind of felt like he was, a young, insecure guy, just kind of thrown into this character and just kind of projecting the Switchblade character. But I think as time's gone on, he's definitely, come into his own. He's played the role phenomenally. And, being the world champion at a Wrestle Kingdom, at a Tokyo Dome show is a big deal for any wrestler. And shout out Jay White for coming this far. And unfortunately, he did lose, but it was still a wonderful match. More in-ring, technical wrestling than the Omega and Ospreay match. There was, it was more just they wrestle in the ring, having a standard match that you would see them wrestle in any other show. Gato gets involved a little bit, but no real antics, I believe, from the Bullet Club that I can recall. So they just, went out there, wrestled, had a great 33-minute match. And Jay White, kind of similar at the end. Jay White loses, and Jay White and Okada are just kind of there. White's trying to get up. He's like crawling up Okada's leg. And it kind of looked like they were talking about something. I don't know what it was, maybe just in a personal way, just maybe saying good job. And they had a little moment there, but maybe in storyline, maybe Jay White is kind of coming around to Okada. Maybe he, is kind of capitulating and saying that, look, you are the better man. I don't know. But moving on into New Year's Dash, Jay White challenges was it Tongaloa? Did he challenged, I think it was Tongaloa, I'm not 100% sure, but a loser leaves New Japan, a loser leaves Japan match, and who knows exactly what's going on there. Rumors speculating maybe Jay White's going to lose and he's going to leave, possibly to AEW or WWE. Now, if he does want to come over into the United States and wrestle for whether it's WWE or AEW, I think either one of those companies would love to have him. As I said, I think he's a phenomenal talent, maybe a little bit undersized as a heel in WWE, but Seth Rollins, I would say, I don't know, size by size, standing next to each other, but I would say he's about the same size as Seth Rollins, and Rollins has done great in his career, even though maybe coming in, they thought he would be undersized, but Jay White's great. And I don't know what's next for him, but whatever it is, I assume it is going to be fantastic. So working our way back, going in the pre-show, nothing really too much to say happened in the pre-show. There was a 3-minute exhibition match between, I am not even going to try to say these names, but a New Japan kind of young boy, younger new oncomer against Oleg Boltin, which is a famed amateur wrestler. They just went out there, grappled for 3 minutes. It was a lot of fun. Like, it was only 3 minutes, but it was fun while it lasted. Then we had the KOPW New Year's or whatever, the New Japan Rumble. Last 3 competitors end up facing off for the KOPW championship. Great Okan, Shingo Takagi, and Toriano advanced. So yeah, it was what it was. And then we get the Antonio Inoki Memorial 6-man tag. It was, kind of an old timers match, but it was fun, only 9 minutes, but to kick off the show, they did air a Antonio Inoki Memorial, which was nice to see. And then they just run down the card. Opening match with IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag titles as TJP and Francisco Akira defeat Leo Rush and Yo. Only goes 10 minutes, 29 seconds, but a typical opening IWGP Junior Tag title match. Shadow Leo Rush, he's just been everywhere. If you've seen him, he got busted open pretty badly, so he's going to be on the sidelines for a little bit. But just a good, athletic, crisp match. A little hiccups here and there, but just a really good opening match. And then we get the IWGP Women's Championship as Kairi takes on Tam Nakano. Only goes 5 minutes and 56 seconds. Kind of disappointing that the women weren't given too much time, but also on the other hand, they had 9 matches on the main card, and if you give this match a couple extra minutes, then maybe give a couple up, some other matches a couple extra minutes, then time adds up, and it's like an AEW show. We're here for like 6 hours. So it sucks that the women weren't exactly given what I thought they could. If they were given just 10 minutes, like just given the same amount of time as the tag team match, I think they could have maybe even outperformed the tag team match. But Kairi gets the win, hits the elbow. The crowd was a little silent for this one. And then Mercedes Moné makes her debut. Talked about it on the Bullet Cast. And yeah, it wasn't the best debut, to be honest, for her. But she is going to wrestle Kairi at the San Jose show coming up in a month. And I will be going. The Bullet Cast boys will be in attendance. And Baby Huey will be there. Unfortunately, Katie won't be there. But, just like a bunch of other people around here, they saw that Mercedes was going to be there. Swipe up tickets. And before you know it, the event has sold out. I don't know what the official number was before Mercedes was confirmed for the show, but it was a bunch. Like there was a lot of tickets. Almost, I don't want to say the entire upper deck wasn't sold, but there was a lot of tickets still left. And then within a week, less than a week, we stand here and that show sold out basically off of her back. Now, you can make whatever narrative you want because it's a smaller venue. It's not like she sold at a 10,000 seat arena. It's not like the CM Punk stuff, but New Japan has been colder recently. Wrestle Kingdom was a really good show. And then you add on top of, Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné having her first, who knows, we'll talk about that a little bit later in the AEW Dynamite preview, but possibly her first match back in wrestling since leaving WWE. I mean, that's going to move numbers. So good for her. Crowd wasn't too into it. Now it's a little, Japanese crowd, not going to be super duper vocal all the time, but when they are vocal, like it's fantastic. And, a women's match on a New Japan card in the Tokyo Dome. It's a relatively new division for New Japan, but I think the IWGP Women's title was mainly kind of for the international audience. So, because they have a lot of these women are going to be from Stardom, if not all of them. So, they in Japan, they're going to wrestle for Stardom, and then kind of outside the US or outside Japan, they're going to wrestle for, they'll wrestle for New Japan. But we'll find out. I mean, Kairi and Sasha, Mercedes wrestling for that title. Two former WWE wrestlers going at it. It should be a really fun match. Hopefully they're given much more than 5 minutes and 56 seconds. I believe they will. I think they'll main event unless they pull out some, unless Kenny Omega unless Kenny Omega is defending the US title. I wonder what the main event match is going to be for that, but I wouldn't be shocked if it is the women who main event. Then we get the heavyweight tag team titles with FTR losing, unfortunately, to Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi. So in a matter of 3 weeks, FTR loses the AAA, ROH, and IWGP tag team titles. So they are not the belt collectors anymore. Solid match. Once again, a lot of these matches were kept short, which was good, but also you could have seen them do a little bit better. But I think FTR, as I said in the casties, I think they should have been 2022 tag team of the year. And so, heading to 2023, now they've hit the reset button a little bit of losing other titles, and I wonder where they're going to go. Feuding with the Guns in AEW might not be the best thing in the world, just because the Guns aren't a main event tag team act, but FTR finally getting like a storyline proper on television is a good start. But I mean, I don't know. Speculation that FTR and Tony might not be Tony Khan's favorite tag team right now. Possibly some issues with the Young Bucks. And maybe FTR goes back to WWE, but also circling back to the Vince McMahon stuff. Like if Vince is back in power, then that seeps back into the day-to-day, the creative and booking stuff. Then now a lot of people who left WWE and who wanted to come back because Triple H is booker, now Vince has his grubby little hands and everything. How is that going to pan out? And I feel so bad for William Regal. He joins AEW after getting fired. Then he comes back to WWE because Triple H is his boy. And then like right after that happens, then Vince McMahon comes back. I feel bad for Regal, but that just happens when you have a crazy lunatic sociopath as the owner of the company. But anyways, Zack Sabre Jr. Takes on Ren Narita for the NJPW World Television title. Only 15-minute TV time limit on these matches, but Zack Sabre Jr. gets the win, so he is the inaugural New Japan TV champion. So another championship in New Japan. You just love to see it. They kind of touted this as kind of the up-and-comers belt, so I thought possibly Ren Narita was going to win, but Zach wins via submission, so possibly giving a little star power to the title, give it some legitimacy before you transition it to possibly to Ren or another kind of young boy and another wrestler kind of on the come up. But really, really solid match. A Zack Sabre Jr. style match can be technical, a lot of submissions, a lot of grappling and stuff like that. So I very much enjoyed it. Then the finish we all saw coming. Tama Tonga defeats Carl Anderson for the Never Openweight Championship. This one goes 9 minutes, 30 seconds. I mean, it was fine. They kind of botched the finish with Tama hitting supposed to be a gun stun, but Anderson kind of bumped before he was supposed to, or they didn't get a good grip on it. I don't know exactly what happened, but Tama gets the win. It was fine. We saw this coming from a mile away. Just a nice little cherry on top with, AEW, AEW, WWE wrestlers, and then, Mercedes, Sasha Banks making her debut. So kind of a nice little, the real Forbidden Door show, if you want to say that. Then 6-man tag team match. This was the Keiji Muto's kind of final match. It was his final match in New Japan. Keiji Muto, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Shota Umino defeat Los Ingobernables de Japón, Naito, Sonata, and Bushi. This one only goes 9:20, but it was fun while it lasted. Keiji Muto gets in there, wrestles Naito a little bit, wrestles Sonata, I think. Best part of the match was Muto faking or, saying he's going to attempt the moonsault, and then Tanahashi kind of talks him off the ledge, which, I mean, there's no way in hell Keiji Muto is going to hit that moonsault, but let the imagination run wild, and it was fun. Ultimately, Umino, Shooter, I think gets the win. Was it over Bushi? I probably was Bushi just because that makes sense, but good for Shooter, good for Shota Umino, kind of John Moxley's right-hand man back when Moxley was running rampant in New Japan. So nice to see him kind of get his acclaim, and he's kind of coming to his own. He's not really a young boy anymore. He's almost kind of like Tanahashi light with the bright colors, long flowing hair. So maybe, Shota Umino, he can piggyback off this and maybe have a really successful 2023 and could maybe be in the casties for breakout star of the year. Who knows? Then kind of the final match to talk about is the 4-way IWGP Junior Heavyweight title with Taiji Ishimori defending against Romo Takahashi, El Desperado, and Master Wato. This one goes 16:43, so the third longest match, or outside of the New Japan Rebel in the pre-show, but what you would think of an IWGP Junior title. Hiromu doing his thing. Hiromu ended up getting the win, and once again becomes junior heavyweight champion. Master Wato kind of is the odd man out in this one. They've done a decent job of kind of building him up after he was kind of brought in as a joke, but adding him into this junior title match kind of brings it down a little bit. He's still like a fine and okay wrestler, but not exactly on the level of like Takahashi and Ishimori and then Despi. So, overall, solid match, kind of the warm up, the final match before the two main events. So they weren't out there to steal the show, but there definitely were some memorable moments in there. But overall, as I said, fantastic show. Maybe not the top tier of Wrestle Kingdom shows. There wasn't like the, possibly greatest match of all time, but Kenny Omega and Ospreay was great. Okada and JY was great. There really wasn't like a bad match on the show. I probably would say like the low light probably would be Tama Tonga and Carl Anderson, just because of the nature of it. You knew Anderson was dropping it and they kind of botched the finish. Besides that, I think all the matches delivered. None of them overstayed their welcome. Maybe you could shave a little bit off those top two matches just because sometimes those New Japan matches go over a half hour. There's some stalling and kind of, overindulge, but they didn't go past 45, which I think was something that was really hurting New Japan matches, during the pandemic era where they were just having long matches for the sake of having long matches. But these ones deserve the long match length. And overall great show. If you haven't, go check it out. You can watch it on New Japan World. Boom. So moving on, let's do something a little bit different. Since I'm recording this on Tuesday, we normally review AEW Dynamite, which we are going to be recording after Dynamite goes off the air. So maybe you can a little more timely episode of the Bulletcast, but let's just do it. Let's give a little preview to AEW Dynamite. We get, so all these things currently have been advertised. They are back in the Kia Forum in Los Angeles, California. Last time they were there was the show after Double or Nothing. That is where MJF cut his, shoot, quote unquote, promo on Tony Khan and stormed off. And then we didn't see him again until Full Gear. But we're back. The Jericho Appreciation Society is set to speak, probably going to gloat about Ricky Starks beating him up and, Action Andretti. I would assume maybe we get like a tag team match set up with Andretti and Ricky Starks, or, Ricky just clowns on all of them. And anything like that. We've been seeing a lot more, talking segments in AEW, which, I enjoy. Some of them can be a little more too sports entertainment-y, kind of with the gun funeral segment with FTR last week. And there's a lot more kind of just stand in the ring and talk for 5 to 10 minutes, which in WWE sometimes can get too much because they're just there for the sake of filling time. AEW kind of teeters on that point, but so far hasn't gone there quite yet. We got Hook and Jungle Boy taking on Big Bill and Lee Moriarty. So continuing the Hook Jungle Boy tag team. I could see this one going either way, possibly, the heels getting the win just for Hook and Jungle Boy to kind of make the comeback. But this is a landmark show, I would say. There's probably AEW is going to put a lot of emphasis on the show. So I would assume Hook and Jungle Boy get the win. I do wonder what the end game is with Hook and Jungle Boy. Are they going to be kind of a fixture in the tag team division, or is this going to just be a dream tag team that for the moment they're just kind of being together and then they're going to go on their separate ways? And who knows? But, the tag team division right now, especially with the trios division kind of eating up some tag teams with the Young Bucks and Death Triangle and Best Friends, and some of the other people who would typically be in the and even like what oh my God, Malachi Black stable. I am completely blanking on what they're called, but that's another threesome that could be a tag team. House of Black. There we go. Good job, Brandon. You figured it out. But it should be a really fun match. Another really fun match is going to be Bryan Danielson taking on Konosuke Takeshita. Takeshita tied for Bulletcast Breakout Star of the Year with Roxanne Perez, and this is on Danielson's quest to beat everybody up until February 8th. Sometime first week of February, something like that. So this is just, once again, Danielson wrestling matches for the sake of wrestling matches. This should be a really good one. Him and Takeshita are going to have a barn burner. Not going to say another word that starts with the letter B, but should be fun. I expect Danielson to win and possibly MJF either gets involved in the finish or they have another kind of promo back and forth. So this one should be really good. Then Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker take on Saraya and Toni Storm in a tag team match. A lot of speculation on Mercedes Moné possibly filling in for Toni Storm if Toni were to get laid out by possibly Hikaru Shida turning heel. I don't know. They definitely left that door open. And I think if you're not going to have Mercedes on the show, you don't leave that door open. So I don't know. I mean, we've seen AEW kind of lead fans in a direction and then kind of, pull the rug out from under them. So I would say Mercedes is going to be there just because it was a really weird segment. Like Saraya sitting there with both Toni and Hikaru Shida and then just outright kind of disrespecting Shida, just like turning her back on her and just putting over Toni. So I just don't know why you would do that. And that's like, you can do it so many different ways of like Saraya, going to Toni's, maybe going to like Toni's locker room or going, talking to each wrestler individually and maybe kind of making Saraya more of the not sympathetic figure, but kind of, lessening the blow on not picking Shida. Just the way they did it kind of was weird. So I wonder if that's the way they're going. And as we see, a lot of people are talking themselves into, this means Shida's going to lay out Storm and that's going to bring back Mercedes because, she lives in Hollywood or something like that. But if that doesn't happen, some people are going to be mad. But Jon Moxley is set to take on Hangman Adam Page. If he clears his concussion protocol, I would assume he does. It was kind of weird where they did the promo last week where Hangman said, if I clear this test tomorrow, I'm going to be able to wrestle. But then just later on the show, they just didn't even acknowledge that. They were like, next week, Jon Moxley and Adam Page are going to wrestle. Bam. That's a done deal. Don't even have to worry about it. So who knows? Moxley Page, two of the bigger stars they have. Should be a really fun match. I don't know what the finish would be. Maybe Page gets the win and they kind of build him up to possibly go up against MJF. I don't know, but should be a fun match and possibly an angle afterwards to kind of set them up. Because are you really going to have Moxley and Page continue this feud for a couple months and possibly get into Revolution? I don't know, but we shall see. Then finally, match 7. Triángulo de la Muerte taking on the Elite, match 7 for the Trios Championship in a Escalera de la Muerte match. I mean, it's LA, Young Bucks home. I would assume just the Elite get the win and they're Trios champions, and possibly they go on to do whatever they're supposed to do after initially winning the titles after Full Gear. So that's what I'm expecting. Ladder match, somewhat different than all the other matches. You know, we've had a lot of hardcore, a lot of, you know, just brawls types. So maybe this one is going to be kind of crazier just because there's going to be a lot more ladder spots, but very similar to kind of the last 3 or 4 matches we've seen, which, you know, all the matches have been good, like really athletic, really high intensity, some drama involved, but also it's kind of run its course, I think, at this point. A trios best of 7 match is kind of a bit much. You know, a singles best of 7, I think you have a little more leeway, can, you know, do some different things just because there's less people involved. But so some people out there might be calling this the best match, you know, 7 series match ever. I wouldn't say that. You know, kind of going back, I've been doing some stuff with the Monday Night War, Chris Benoit, Booker T. That was a fantastic best 7 series, and you know, there's been some other ones back in the day, but I don't know. I think you go either which way, but I think the Elite are going to get the win, and finally we can go on and do whatever we're going to do with the trios titles. I would hope that just because the Elite have the trios titles, that doesn't lock them down into the trios division. I would still love to see the Young Bucks do some stuff in the tag team division and Kenny do some things in the singles division. Now, maybe the Elite are at this point, do they just want to hang out with their buddies, have matches with them, and hang out with each other? I mean, cool, good for them for having that type of power that they can just do that. But as a fan, I kind of wish they were kind of separated and they can do their own thing. Just like saying back at the Wrestle Kingdom stuff, like you saw what Kenny could do as a singles guy. I would much rather see that Kenny Omega in AEW than Kenny with the Young Bucks just having, you know, 15-minute spotty matches in trios title match. I would want to see, you know, the cleaner, the best bout machine, the top guy, Kenny Omega, face off against an MJF or face off against Hangman Page again, or, you know, something of that nature. I just think having 3 of your top guys in the trios division is kind of a waste of their talents. And all 3 of them are getting up there in age. They've had a lot of bumps on their bump card. I don't know how much longer you can get out of them, and putting them here in the trios division on the back end of the prime, I don't know if that's the best use of them. But we'll stay tuned to find out to see what happens on Dynamite tomorrow. So that is it. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. I don't know when the next episode will be of Under the Radar. Just going to check. Well, I could check the email, but it's been so long I don't have the access to my email right now because I have to sign in. It'd be a whole thing. But if you want to send in an email that I may never check in the world ever, utrmailbag@gmail.com, or you send in, if you want to send in a question to the proper Bulletcast, Bulletcast2 and the number 2 suite @gmail.com. Thank you guys. I'll be back in a couple days for the regular edition of the Bulletcast. I'll be there. Katie will be there. Philip will be there. Can't say the same about Brian, but you never know. Maybe he'll show up. But until next time, goodbye, good night, bye-bye.